the FJ09 is kind of a good all-around bike. I don't know how it would be for like a really long ride, because I've only really ridden, I think this last trip was just over 700 miles in 2 days. But for commuting around town and for just getting out and just riding, I mean, it's really easy to ride because it feels very finely balanced. It actually feels light. I can flick it around really easily. It's not real heavy, and so even at low speeds, it's not very hard to operate. The only thing that I would say is, I mean, it's kind of a tall bike. I mean, I'm 6 foot and I can't quite flat foot it. But it's going to be an individual thing. There's so many bikes out there. You just have to find what works best for you. And for me personally, I prefer having a taller bike. Even though I'm kind of on my toes, I just like the extra height. Of course, this is coming from somebody who's driven an SUV, four-wheel drive, for a long time. So, it's where my comfort zone is. I just feel better being up just a little bit higher. But I think some of the advantages of having that extra height is having the extra suspension travel. I mean, because with a bike like this, you have a little bit more travel than you do on some of the other bikes, and the suspension can actually work a little bit better, because the shocks and suspension seems to work best when it's like right about midway. And so with the longer suspension, even at midway, you still have a lot of travel to absorb all the bumps and dips and everything that you run into on the road. So, I've been riding just over 2 years now, and I've always been of the adventurous spirit, mountain biking and four-wheel drive vehicles and so forth. And with my motorcycle, I wanted something that I could do everything with, something versatile and flexible, kind of a jack of all trades, or a pizza supreme, or whatever you want to call it. And first one that I settled on was the Kawasaki Versys 650, and I have to say that was a very good first starter bike, because it had plenty of power, but not too much, not like this one. The FJ09, I think probably it could be a first bike. I mean, but I'm actually glad that I didn't get this one first, because it takes a little while to learn that throttle control, and even with the traction control, the anti-wheelie properties of it, it's still got a whole heck of a lot of power compared to the Versys. So, I mean, I think it makes a great second bike. But when I was looking for a second bike, I looked at a lot of different options. I was kind of leaning towards something with a shaft drive, and so I kind of looked at the FJR 1300 and then the Kawasaki Concourse. But man, those are 700-pound bikes. I mean, I think the Yamaha's a little bit less, and I really liked what the FJ09 had to offer. I think originally kind of fell in love with it from just the appearance, because it's got some fairings on it and it's kind of a sport bike look, but it's mostly naked, and not like true naked, I mean, but you can see the engine and the frame and all of the the parts that are attractive attributes for a motorcycle, I think. This is the place called the Vic. It's only been here maybe a year and a half or so. I've never been inside of it. Looks like a nice place. And they put it like at the foothills of the White Tanks. It's kind of a nice little overlook area. Looks like a great spot. You know, I did a video review of my bike, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago when I was in New Mexico. And I started going through all the video, and you know, I just didn't really like it because I kind of made a plan. I made a sheet of all the bullet points, talking paper that I was going to do. And it was in kind of a nice spot. It's out in the middle of the New Mexico desert at the very large array. But on that video, I just was going through it and from end to end talking about all about the bike, and then all of the additions and modifications. And after I looked at it, I thought, well, I mean, almost all of us modify our bikes, and so I thought I would just redo it and just, you know, talk more about the bike rather than the mods, because, you know, if you got a bike, you're gonna make changes and additions the way that you want to do it, not the way that I do it. So I thought I would just talk a little bit about having the bike for, I've had the bike for a year now, and only got about 6,000 miles on it. And I've already gone through one tire. I changed the rear tire. I left the front tire because, I mean, it's still good. I'm not gonna throw away a good tire. Next tire change, and then I'll replace the set. A couple of the other bikes that I looked at, the reason I didn't get them was because, well, for one thing, they were more expensive, and they were very heavy. This one, as it sits, was I think the Yamaha says it's 460 pounds wet. I don't know what that is in kilos, but I've actually had it down a couple of times, and through, you know, minor mishaps, and I was able to pick it up myself. I didn't have to do the turnaround and lift with my legs crap like you do like a heavy cruiser or nothing. I just picked it up. I mean, it's heavy, but it's not impossible. I mean, I can move it around myself with not a whole heck of a lot of effort. And to me, just being lightweight was an attribute. And you know, I thought that being lightweight, maybe it wouldn't perform as well on the highway or at you know, highway speeds, but really it does. It's very, very stable. After I got the suspension better adjusted, and I learned to tune it for my weight and the weight of the bike, and the way that I like it, the bike is actually a lot more solid, and it just felt a lot better on the highway. You know, I have a little bit more damping, and I have the preload turned up, and so it rides very, very well. At some point, whenever I do the fork oil change, I may change the springs in the front to be a stronger spring, so that way I could probably be able to back off of some of the preload. But unless I have a problem with it, I don't really have any plans to do any upgrades. I see where a lot of people on the forums, you know, talk about, you know, they want better suspension, and you know, really once this one was adjusted, it feels pretty good. I mean, this is coming from a rider that's I've only been riding for 2 years, but from the factory, the suspension to me it seems fine. It's not something that you really need to do an upgrade on, unless of course you just have money burning a hole in your pocket. I mean, you could do a really nice suspension upgrade for around 4 or 5 grand, but I don't think that that's really necessary. Now, before I took delivery of the bike, Yamaha had already done the recall work. They replaced this shift shaft, and you can tell by there's like a little blue dot on it, and so that was done. And the other thing that was done recall wise was the cam chain tensioner. I've seen a lot of discussion regarding the factory cam chain tensioner. This one had been replaced. You see it's got a little colored dot on it that indicates that that it had been replaced. And not only that, but they also changed a head bolt here to allow for better oil flow. The change in the cam chain tensioner, they actually cut some oil grooves in it so that it gets better lubrication, and also you can't see it here, but you can see that they actually put a different bolt and they reworked the head so that it would get more oil flow, because there was a problem with the cam chain tensioner failing and causing too much slack and causing some major engine malfunction. So this one has been pretty good. I mean, there's I see a lot of people have changed it to the manual cam chain tensioner made by APE, which is like about $89. I mean, you could get it, and I thought that if this one ever becomes a problem, and if it's still not covered under warranty, then I would replace it. But I think at about 3,000 miles, I started getting some chain noise, and it wasn't consistent. When I would shut the bike off and turn it back on, then it would go away. And so I took it to the dealer, and of course they did absolutely nothing. They didn't even look at it. They just looked at the computer and said it had been changed, and so I looked in the service manual of how to adjust it, and basically you take this bolt off and you stick an Allen wrench in it, and the Yamaha manual says you just turn it finger tight and then 1/4 turn beyond that. And so I did that, and that was like about 3,000 miles ago, and maybe it just needed an adjustment after, you know, breaking in, but it's been totally quiet. I've not had any problems with it since then. There's certainly some things regarding this bike that I was not happy with, and I had to upgrade. First one really was the windshield. The original windshield at first seemed to be okay, but you know, I needed something just a little bit higher because I was getting a lot of buffeting on my helmet. And this may vary from rider to rider. I mean, I'm 6 foot, so you know, I think I sit kind of tall in the seat, and so the factory screen may work for you. I don't know. I mean, I thought that it was going to work for me, but it really didn't work. And the other thing that has been a big irritation with this bike, and I see a lot of people have problems with it, is you get I had a lot of vibration in the handlebars, and not at every RPM, only at certain speeds, like, you know, about 45 or 50 miles an hour, it would vibrate kind of a lot. And so about 2 weeks after I had the bike, I had a little mishap and I broke the factory handguards. So rather than replace them with the factory ones, I replaced them with these Barkbuster VPS, and these are variable. You can adjust the height here. But the thing about the Barkbusters is it's quite a bit heavier. This is all aluminum backbone, and these bar ends are actually steel, and they're kind of heavy. And so the one thing I noticed right away was that all the vibration with just a little bit of bar end weight was just gone. I mean, you could still feel that the engine's running, but it's not vibrating to the point where it you know, makes my hands numb anymore. So that fixed it. And the only other things that I haven't talked about was I put some ram bar, ram mount ball mounts here. And so here's where I mount my radar detector, which I'm not running today. And I put a second one here in case I wanted to put something else there. The bike comes with a power point, a 12-volt power point on the other side, but on this side I put a USB. So this is one from Blue Sea, and I'm not going to put a link in it. Just look it up on Amazon. It's Blue Sea. It's SEA as in the ocean sea, and just wired it right in. Now all the wiring that I did on this, everything's run through a fuse block that I put in. The fuse block I also got from Blue Sea. They seem to make a lot of automotive type electronic parts, and I put in a fuse block and a 30 amp relay. That it's like from AutoZone, I think it was, that powers the fuse block. And so from that I powered the USB, and I run power to my radar detector, and of course my camera system, my INOV DVR system. And the wiring, I actually ran it with the gas tank off, and I ran it along the factory wire harness, and I put everything inside of these vinyl electrical conduits, and so everything is all zip tied and velcroed along the factory. So, you know, nothing's, you know, tapped or there's no wire splices or nothing. Everything is soldered and shrink wrapped. I was going to make a separate video about this, but I'm going to go ahead and include it. My tank bag carrier, this one, I originally got this one at Cycle Gear, and it was on sale. I was buying something else, and it was one of these deals at Cycle Gear. If you buy something else, you can get this second item for $9 or $10, or I really don't remember how much it was, but regularly this is like a $49. This is like a $49 tank bag, and it's a magnetic bag. But as you can see, I took the magnets off because the magnets really wasn't holding the bag good enough, because here is steel, but this here is plastic, and so, you know, it was always loose, and I was afraid to put any weight in it. And so what I did was from Cortec, I found online, you know, I got a tank lock system. So now you can see I just cut out the magnets, and I put some Gorilla Tape here. You can see where the magnet used to be, and I just ran some screws through it, and it's a lot more solid. And you can see I got some, you know, a little bit more weight in it. And you know, I just carry the essentials, you know, a little OC spray. I always want to have some sort of less lethal option. A battery backup, and also I have a jump starter then here. These are about $100, but this one is Pod X1, and sometimes I'll run my camera through this. I'll actually put this in my jacket pocket. Backup maps, you know, for the places I travel, and you can see here I just drilled a hole and I use all stainless hardware, so it holds things a lot more solid. And you know, I don't always carry my handgun inside the bag, but you know, today I am, because I want all the air coming into my jacket that I can get, because it is, even though it's nice morning, it's still starting to warm up a little bit. But it just locks up just like that. And so for This tank lock system was right about 20 bucks. So, and then the bag, I think it was either $9.99 or $19.99. So, you know, the locking systems, typically most of them that you see are, you know, 100 or 150 bucks for the set. And so this everything here is like right about 40 bucks, maybe 30. And like I said, I'll include a link to this tank lock system, and they have them for several different bikes, not just the Yamaha. And you don't necessarily have to use this bag. You can use, you know, anything, but you do need to have some sort of stiffness in the bottom, which this one, the Sidisi, seems to have just the right amount of stiffness. And being that I have hard bags, I don't really need to have a lot of stuff in here, you know, so I just keep just the essentials, you know, some extra earplugs and flashlight, some cleaning solution, and a microfiber towel to clean the bugs off my visor and stuff. So that's all the kind of stuff that I want to have right up here up front. And you know, you just pop it right off and carry it with you, or pop it off and lock it in the side bags. So since I when I bought this bike, since I bought it, it was leftover new. Through part of the negotiations, I actually got the dealership to throw in the bags, and so I installed them myself. I had to wait for them because I got one, and then a week later, then the other one came in. But I found that with Yamaha, even if you get these that come with a bag, the key doesn't match, and so I thought, well, that kind of sucked. So I don't have any videos or photos of it, but I mean, when I was installing it, I took the locks apart, and these are really very, very simple locks. And, you know, it's got little brass tumblers in it, so I just rearranged a couple of them, and one of them I had to actually file. And so my ignition key was able to fit the, I wanted to have just one key. I didn't want to have two keys. And so, I mean, if you have a bike like that, it's really not very hard. It's just a matter of just taking off the lock, and you want to get so that the tumblers are all flat. So, I mean, that may mean you have to rearrange some of the tumblers, or file them with like a little jeweler's file. You just have to be filed enough that it clears. And so, you know, it's really nice just to have one key to fit everything, because Yamaha didn't offer that option. They didn't even, there wasn't even an option to have it rekeyed from the dealership. I mean, a locksmith could do it, but I did it myself. It was fairly straightforward. One of the other little things that I wasn't totally happy with, and I did do a video on it, was just, you know, I changed the levers because I wanted to have some adjustment. Because from the factory, the brake lever was adjustable, but the clutch lever wasn't. And so I actually found these on eBay, and the whole set was like 26 bucks for the set. And these you find at like Cycle Gear, the speed medals are like $100 for each one, and they were actually really easy to install. And so I've had them, I put them on back in, I think back in February or March, and they've been totally fine ever since. But I'm going to just talk about one more thing that really is kind of a source of irritation, is the gas gauge. You can see the gas gauge right now shows full, but I'm at 124 miles. And so usually like at about 124 miles since my last fill up. And usually at that point, at about 100 miles, I get my gas tank goes down to about a half. And you can see it shows full, but then this whole top half will go down. So it's not going to go down to 3/4 or nothing like that. It's going to, all of a sudden, it's just going to go down to a half. And so with that, I just used the trip 1, and I just reset it every time, so that way I'm not surprised. You know, it's just better to keep track of it. And I learned that from some more seasoned motorcyclists that You know, I guess some of the older motorcycles didn't even have fuel gauges, so they had to use their odometer to kind of keep track of it. So once I did that, then it's okay. But still, come on, Yamaha. I mean, why couldn't you have a 3/4 or 3/8? I don't know. Just, but maybe it's because of the shape of the tank or to cut cost. But it is a little bit of a irritation. I did upgrade the seat. I had the Sergeant on my previous bike, and so I put that on this one, and I really like the seat cover. It's just by Alaska Leather. It's not padded or nothing. It's just lamb's wool, but it just adds just a little bit of comfort. And if it gets wet, you know, it's no big deal. You just, you know, wring it out and let it air dry. And after you had it for a while, it starts to form around the seat, but it just adds a little bit of extra comfort. And so the back seat, you know, I can carry extra stuff. These little nets are like about $10, and if I need to lock my helmet, I have locked my helmet with this bicycle lock. Sure, it can be defeated, but I mean, you can set your own combination. It just seems like a kind of a little handy thing to have, and it doesn't get in the way. And I also use a disc lock if I park like at a hotel overnight, and I keep that underneath the seat. I'm not going to pull that out, but there's a million of them out there. But